Hello, BookTube. I have some mail for you here. The gray, watery Friday. The weather outside looks like winter, but it doesn't feel like winter. It's only a tiny bit cool. But a delightful day for reading, that's for sure, as pretty much any day would be. And we did get some mail. I think more mail is coming today. But we have enough to go on. It doesn't have to be a long video. We have a periodical and two packages. And the periodical is the New Yorker. There with one lyric from the 12 Days of Christmas. And it has a couple of things in it that you might find interesting in case you don't get the New Yorker. There were a couple of cartoons that I wanted to show you. The first one is by a New Yorker veteran. There it is. Two dogs on the couch with a man in the easy chair with a cat on his lap. And the caption is, "Whatever confidence I had in him is now gone." Oh, that was kind of funny in an understated way. But there's something else that will appeal to all of you introverts out there. Here is a man at a bar or a restaurant at a table, a woman walking in with a book in her hand. And the caption is, "I brought a book just in case chatting with you turns out not to be the right option for me." A lot of you will sympathize with that, I'm sure. And there was another item of interest in here. Let me get to it. It was the New Yorker, in addition to publishing pieces and whatnot, publishes poems, 2 poems in every issue. And there was one in this issue by Christian Wyman. It called "The Weakness Meaning Time." And I've been a little bit neglecting Poetry Thursday. It's a fugitive little booktube thing where people read poetry on Thursday, and I've been neglecting it either because it slipped my mind or because of a ferocious personal vendetta between me and Aaron Facer. Who can tell which? But I thought we'd read this poem as a sort of partial recompense for that. All morning gently swimming in the misery of a dead writer. Poverty like a genetic bequest, polar loneliness, the financial, fanatical, reciprocal chiseling of mind and matter, and the long silences, late saliences of God and sound set like glyphs in the mother country, childhood, all morning, as if it didn't touch me, as indeed it doesn't, mostly, one daughter dead, another mad as jacks, drafts and diaries scattered like a plane crash in the ocean, and fragments as fruition, and exile like a birthright, and as the sun bleeds out one evening like a suicide, suicide. All morning my exercise to keep those muscles strong enough to recognize the weakness meaning time, to climb out as if there were an out, to dry off as if there were a dry, to look back at a body of water which, like all water, leaves no trace. I think one of the reasons that jumped out at me is because it's at least partly about reading. Of course, the first question that you're going to want to have when you read a poem like that is, who is the writer that we're talking about? The author the narrator of the poem has been submersed in a long and gloomy biography of an author and is remembering in the course of the poem that that's not my life. That I can try to heave myself out of it, to look at the sun, to look at the winds and the outside world and my own life, and then the underlying realization of the poem, which is that it is your own life. It's not you that you're reading about, but your life will be just as inescapable. And your sadnesses, your tawdriness, the whatever someone is reading about you in a future biography will all feel the same. That reader will have to escape from the clutches of that biography to find refreshment in their own life. I liked it. I liked it very much. I'm curious to know what Christian Wyman was reading when he wrote that poem. But we have that, and we have a couple of packages, and then we'll be done. No boxes, but these days I'm not expecting anything that isn't from 2022. Yeah, see, this one is 2022. Oh, great. Oh, fantastic. All right. Let's get all the excess out of here. This is great. This is coming out in March of 2022. See, the mere mention of Aaron Facer's name. This is Rapture and Melancholy, The Diaries of Edna St. Vincent Millay, one of my favorite poets. And this comes out, this is edited by Daniel Mark Epstein. It comes out in early March and is the first publication of the diaries Millay kept from adolescence until middle age, between 1907 and 1949, focused on her most productive years. All the rest of my day was productive because this is the one and only time in the entire course of the 24 hours of this day in which I will have even the slightest inkling to sneeze, much less sneeze repeatedly. The moment that I'm on camera. That is the only time that will happen. English author Thomas Hardy proclaimed that America had two great attractions, the skyscraper and the poetry of Edna St. Vincent Millay. In these intimate diaries, the great American poet illuminates not only her literary genius, but also her life as a devoted daughter, sister, wife, and public heroine, and finally, as a solitary, tragic figure. Great. I don't know if, I don't remember off the top of my head if Yale is doing a companion collection of her poetry, or even if they're legally allowed to. I, right now, don't have a copy of that. Those of you who are familiar with American bookstores will remember the big white trade paperback collected poems of Edna St. Vincent Millay. I had that once upon a time with the green scripting on the cover. And I don't. I don't have it anymore. Don't know why. I adore this poet, but I will encounter that volume, and the Brattle will provide. And maybe Yale will come out with a new selected poetry. But that's great. That's in March, and that's fantastic. And then we have this next package, and then we'll be done. This one's bigger. Still not a box, but bigger. Could be a finished copy. Yes, this finished copy. Oh, great. Okay, this is still 2022. But yeah, this is a finished copy. No paperwork, but then the subject hardly needs paperwork. This is The House of Windsor. In fact, technically the very beginning of it. This is George V, Never a Dull Moment by Jane Ridley. This is the finished copy. This comes out in January or February. It's not a 2021 release. And this is a new biography of George V. It will get reviewed everywhere. All the big journals have somebody in their Rolodex who writes about royalty, who writes about British royal history. And they'll be able to take this thing for a trot around the park in no time at all. They'll have read, like I have, they'll have read everything about this figure and will be able to just dash off a very good, very readable review. I shall do so myself. But this has advanced blurbs by Philip Ziegler, Piers Brendan, BBC History Magazine, Catherine Hughes, A.N. Wilson. Great. So this is oh no, those are all for this author's biography of Edward VII. One of my favorite modern day monarchs. I thought Jane Ridley's biography of Edward VII was notably not good, which is why I'm not doing handsprings for this thing. I'll give it a completely fair shake, but I don't. This author's last time in my clutches did not turn out well. So, but what have we got here? A very less interesting figure, although his wife was not. The grandfather of Queen Elizabeth II. George V reigned over the British Empire from 1910 to 1936, a period of unprecedented international turbulence. Yet no one could deny that as a young man, George seemed uninspired, not just as a young man. His biographer, Harold Nicholson, famously remarked, quote, "He did nothing at all but kill animals and stick in stamps." That means put stamps in an album. He was an avid stamp collector. The flamboyance and hedonism of his father, Edward VII, defined an era whose influence and magnetism are still felt today. The contrast between the two rulers could hardly be greater. But is that really all there was to George? As Alan Tommy Lascelles, one of the most perceptive royal advisors, oh my God, put it, he was dull, beyond dispute, but my God, his reign, never a dull moment. Okay, so this is a big new biography of George V by someone who is extremely familiar with the sources, the primary documents, because she wrote a big biography of his father. So we shall see. Those are our books. Very Steve-ish collection. There are a handful of people who know that I love Edna St. Vincent Millay, and everybody knows, that the House of Windsor. I will write about the House of Windsor at any chance I get. So that's what we have. We have the Diaries of Edna St. Vincent Millay and a new biography of George V, both for next year, plus the New Yorker. So that is the mail for this cloudy Friday. I think rain is in the forecast for tomorrow. With weather forecasters just doing their best to soft shoe around the fact that this is a weird year, that this is a year without a winter. So they have to say that it's normal. They're not allowed to say anything alarmist. So they have to get on camera and say, well, this is normal for this time of year. We haven't even technically reached the calendar winter or whatever. It's completely normal for this year for us to have no hard frost in Boston, no snow in Boston, no cold in Boston in the first week in December, to have had just an endless stretch of summer going all the way back to last winter. That isn't completely normal at all. I don't know what these people think. They must think that none of the people that are listening to them lived here last year. but at least it's not freezing cold. So I'm going to wrap this up, and I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.